Hello and welcome to today's webinar brought to you by Blue Steps, the Candidate Career Service of AESC. To introduce myself, my name is Lisa Wales and I'm the Director of Blue Steps Partnerships and host of today's webinar. Feel free to submit your questions and comments throughout today's event using the Q&A box located on your screen. Blue Steps members will also receive a copy of today's recording via a post-event email, so do look out for that as well. Before we get started, I know that a number of you are new to both Blue Steps and AESC, so we just wanted to provide a quick overview of who we are and what we do. AESC is the Association of Executive Search and Leadership Consultants, so it's the global association that represents the profession of executive search and leadership consulting. In order to join AESC, search firms must pass our association's rigorous quality and ethical standards. This ensures that as a candidate, if you work with an AESC member firm or consultant, you know that you're working with one of the most top quality search professionals in the world, which also includes today's expert panel. AESC also own and operate a candidate career service called Blue Steps. Blue Steps membership provides access to a wide range of career tools and resources, including webinars, workshops, a global search firm directory, a compensation benchmarking tool, and much more. Through our unique connection with AESC member firms, we're able to offer career intel, insights, and support that you just can't get anywhere else, directly from the executive search community. So if you would like to join Blue Steps, you can do so today with an exclusive 15% discount using the code EXECUTIVE15. Just scan the QR code on your screen or go to bluesteps.com, then enter the code EXECUTIVE15 at checkout. Alternatively, if you would like to learn more about Blue Steps membership and whether it's right for you, you can email us at info@bluesteps.com. Great, so moving on with today's discussion, we have a really interesting session planned today. Today's speakers are all industry thought leaders from the executive search community, and they're ready to share their expertise with you on this topic. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce you to our moderator for today. Over to you.
Thank you, Lisa. Hi, everyone. I'm Kulsum Gul, Managing Director of Blue Steps, and it's my pleasure today to moderate our session on having a growth mindset and learning from failure. I'm also joined by my esteemed colleague, Claire, who's also going to help us moderate today's session. So, Claire, if you could introduce yourself.
Thank you, Kulsum. Hello, everybody. My name is Claire Mahon. I'm the Managing Director for EMEA for AESC. So I'm delighted to be here with you today. And I'm delighted to have Matthew with us as well, which is we had Matthew join us at our conference last year in London. And it has been great to actually continue on a partnership with him. So we're delighted to have Matthew. So Matthew, over to you.
Well, thank you, Claire. Great to connect with you both. It's lovely to be here today, and thank you for inviting me. I'm an author of books on high performance culture and a columnist for the Times and the Sunday Times. I also have a Radio 4 program on the BBC, and it's an odd thing to admit, but I also used to be a very long time ago a sports person. I was a British table tennis #1 for a decade and played in 2 Olympic Games. And just in case anyone is giggling out there, thinking, why would anyone play ping pong professionally? May I say briefly that it is actually not a parlor game like Tiddlywinks. It is a globally competitive sport. Maybe, Claire, I'm protesting too much here, but it's lovely to be here. I'm looking forward to this session very much. And if I may say so, thank you for inviting me, and thanks to all of those who are tuning in and looking forward to listening to our thoughts on growth mindset and why it means such a lot in this world of change and complexity that we're living in.
Great. Thank you, Matthew. Such great accomplishments that you have. We also have Helen from Matthew Syed Consulting too, who's going to join us a little bit later. Helen, if you could introduce yourself as well.
Thank you, Kulsum. I'm Helen Devin. I'm Managing Director of Matthew Syed Consulting, and myself and Matthew, we spend a lot of time working with leaders around the world in really helping them understand their mindset and how it contributes and can help with their performance.
Great. Thank you, Helen. Success and having the right mindset are linked. Can you talk to us a bit about having a fixed mindset versus having a growth mindset?
Thanks, Kulsum. And look, if I can say to the attendees here, this is the thing that I'm really interested in. I think growth mindset is a concept of deep significance today for us as individuals, as leaders, but also how we lead great teams. And with your permission, Coulson, let me just take 2 or 3 minutes to unpack this, and I'll tell it through a bit of psychological research and a quick story to bring it to life. So effectively, you can measure growth mindset, asking people, where does great performance come from? Where does meaningful change come from? Where does innovation come from? And this particular survey, Mindset Advantage, we've given it to lots of different people, and people can answer that in different ways. I'm simplifying a little bit, but some people are very focused on talent and talent alone. That if you want to be good, it's about having the gift, having oodles of talent. And if you want a successful team, hiring people with oodles of talent. That's what success is about. That's sometimes called the fixed mindset. In the growth mindset, people tend to say, well, talent's a factor, but it isn't enough. As I alluded to a bit earlier, it's what we do with our talents. And people in a growth mindset tend to be a bit more curious, higher in agency, more proactive. They're better at reaching out to different perspectives to plug the inevitable gaps in any one person's knowledge. And I hope we'll all agree that when the environment is complex, no one person has a monopoly of good ideas, even a leader. But people in a growth mindset tend to be also better learners. We learn, of course, from our successes, and I know we have a lot of successful people here, but there are also, I'm sure you'll agree, rich learning opportunities when we fail, when things go less than perfectly.
Thank you. I know there's lots of questions coming in as well in the Q&A in relation to the growth mindset. But the other side that we wanted to talk about and explore a little today was learning from failure. So I know that today's session, we are talking about growth mindset and learning from failure. So if we switch now to discuss a little bit about failure, which is something you mention a lot in your work that you do, but it could be said that one of the factors that prevent people from being successful is the inability to manage failure. And people respond to failure in lots of different ways, professionally, privately. How would you define the different attitudes towards failure?
Thank you, Claire. And by the way, I should say, thanks for inviting me to the AESC event in London a few months ago. I loved that event, and I really wanted to commend the organization. Fantastic. Failure. Well, it's interesting, Claire, because I actually wrote a book on failure called Black Box Thinking. Is that too self-promotional to mention a book on
Not at all. We'll put a link into the chat because it actually is a fantastic book. If anyone hasn't read it, I encourage you to read it.
Thank you, Claire. And by the way, we didn't rehearse that in advance. That was a spontaneous art. But one thing that worried me about writing this book, if I can be completely frank with the participants, is when you're saying failure's good, people are like, well, hang on, is it really that good? I'm flying to where am I flying next week? I'm flying somewhere. Is it to Holland? And I don't necessarily want the pilot to try a different lever on the final approach as they're coming into Amsterdam, the airport in Amsterdam, and crash the plane. Failure is not always good, and I think we should acknowledge that is the case. So I think we need to be strategic. My own view is we need to be strategic about failure in order to get the culture right, and I think growth mindset really helps with this. Where would we want if a pilot had a really deep intuition or hunch that trying something new in the cockpit would make a flight safer? Where would we want the pilot to test that? In a simulator. If it's high fidelity enough, they get all the benefits of learning, but they don't risk anybody's life. If somebody in a retail organization has a hunch that if we change, I don't know, the configuration of shelves, we're going to get a better customer experience. You don't want them to bet the equity of the entire business on that hypothesis. You want them to test it in a pilot scheme. So they're testing small, extracting the lessons before they can actually roll it out. But the tendency of people in a fixed mindset, Claire, is they do a pilot scheme in the best possible conditions, the best manager, the best area, because they're trying to corroborate the hypothesis. But of course, they don't learn anything. Much better to test the hypothesis in challenging conditions. That way you get much more learning. So I think when it comes to failure, what we need to do is really apply a strategic lens. And we're surfing the trade-off really between the benefits of learning from failure and the risks that accrue to failure. And, people talk about failing fast in Silicon Valley, and it's definitely a technique. where prototypes or hypotheses are tested with early adopters so that one can learn the lessons and iterate effectively. But failing fast, it's always a strategic lens. You know, there's a wonderful thinker called E.O. Wilson. He said, if you test a trivial hypothesis, you get a trivial answer. You test a really interesting hypothesis. You make a really interesting experiment of one kind or another, you get a much bigger answer that can help you to do great work. And that's where I think failure needs to be.
There is lots of questions coming in, and I know that we've got some more parts of the webinar, but I'd just like to actually ask the audience for a poll at the moment while we'll just look and see if there are other questions we want to. And here's the poll. What we're looking for is to see the organization that you work in is very good at learning for both successes and mistakes. Do you strongly disagree? Do you disagree? Do you neither agree nor disagree? Or do you agree totally and strongly agree? Okay, so it's coming through there, and we are getting, not everyone has yet responded, but it's looking at most are disagreeing, and neither agree or disagree. So we've got nearly a full response there. So Bailey, if you want to show the results of the poll. Okay, so we can see there that actually for the majority of this are saying that they disagree with the organization that they're working in is good, is very good at learning for both successes and mistakes. So that's quite interesting. Some strongly disagree, 28% agree. And we've got 17% that neither agree or disagree. We're going to hand over now to Helen and Kulsum and learn a little bit more about the mindset advantage.
Great. Thanks, Claire, and thanks, Matthew. You know, we talked a little bit earlier about our partnership with Matthew Syed Consulting. So everyone is aware, we recently partnered with Matthew Syed Consulting in offering the Mindset Advantage report to Blue Steps members. So as members, you will be able to take this report. And it's a really great tool to help you assess whether you have a growth mindset or developing a growth mindset, and it's tailored both for professional and personal use. So Helen, if you could maybe talk to us a little bit about what are the benefits of taking the Mindset Advantage assessment?
Thank you, Kulsum. So as Matthew has clearly articulated, we strongly believe that mindset impacts performance on an individual, team and organizational level. And really, it's about those thoughts and those beliefs that you have and how they come to manifest themselves in terms of your behavior and in terms of the language that you use. So your actions and your language on a day-to-day basis, whether it be in your personal life or in your professional life. And obviously, as an executive, as a leader, this really has a disproportionate impact in terms of how you engage and how you turn up with your teams. And this is really what we've quantified in terms of our scientific research that we've rigorously assessed and validated and turned into the psychometric that is Mindset Advantage. And really what we've done is we've broken down mindset into 9 behaviors under the lenses of resilience, learning and innovation. And Mindset Advantage, you take it online, it's very quick, it's about 15 minutes to complete. And it asks you about different aspects of your attitudes and your beliefs. And we are then able to take that and scientifically analyze that and compare you against the benchmarks that we have of thousands of executives around the world and say, we know what good looks like. So we know that mindset drives performance. And we're able to reflect back to you about where do you sit in terms of these external benchmarks, in terms of those 9 behaviors. We're able to give you insight about how curious are you? How well do you collaborate? How open are you to trying new things? What's your attitude to failure? How do you take learnings from feedback? So we really explore these 9 aspects in terms of asking you different questions about those beliefs that you have. And again, how they manifest themselves on a day-to-day basis. And what we know is that if you create that level of self-awareness, you're then able to understand, okay, where do I maybe have more fixed mindset tendencies? And how could that be negatively impacting the outcomes that I am personally achieving? And also how I'm engaging with my team to achieve the goals that we've set. So then the great news is, different to personality, personality doesn't change much over time, but your mindset can and does. and you can change your mindset within a matter of months. And so being aware about where you maybe feel have more fixed mindset tendencies, the report then shows you in a lot of detail about where and how you can change your mindset to be more growth mindset orientated, and therefore get a different outcome, get a different result that will have a really positive impact on your performance and those around you.
Great. I mean, that's a great summary. I was going to say, what can, customers expect to gain from this report, but you've kind of gone through that. Have you ever seen folks retake the report after trying to maybe, change some of their mindset and seeing if they get different results from it?
Absolutely. So very much mindset, as I say, your mindset can change. And if you are aware of it and you start to make changes in terms of your attitudes and your beliefs and how you then behave and the language you use, you'll be able to see that shift. And then we would encourage you, we suggest, regularly that we take the Mindset Advantage diagnostic every 12 months to really see about where you are. Because again, I think Matthew touched on it as well. It can be impacted by the environment you're in. We know that the world is changing rapidly, and we know that leaders are really struggling between performing as business as usual, but also challenging that status quo, driving that level of change, thinking about new ways to turn up and really gaining that competitive advantage. And mindset can really help you gain that competitive advantage through your personal performance, but also that of your team. So we strongly encourage people to take the diagnostic, really read and explore the personal life development report, and then put some of those actions into place, and then take it in 12 months' time and see how you've changed. Because what we do know, again, is that especially for leaders, when those leaders have a growth mindset, they are going to perform at higher levels, but also they are going to engage with their team to achieve those results at a higher level as well.
Great. Thank you, Helen. And I want to remind everybody, if you are a Blue Steps member and you'd like to purchase this report today, you can simply click on the link that's been posted in our chat, or you can go to your Blue Steps post login dashboard where you can find a link to the report, and you can take the Mindset Advantage report. We've also posted a link to Matthew's book, also available in the chat. So if anyone is looking for that, we have the link posted as well. We do have just time for maybe one or two more Q&A questions. So Matthew, if you're still available, we have a Q&A question from some of our audience. And this one is from Deborah, and she says, do you have any experience with mindset discussions with unionized employees? So employees who are within unions, it might be very specific, but do you have any experience with that?
Yes, yeah. We do have experience working with people who are in trades unions. And I'm not sure that I have anything particularly interesting to say. I'm guessing is the implication, Coulson, that heavily unionized might be a bit more reluctant to adapt to changing situations. Maybe it's similar to highly regulated.
Yeah.
Maybe there are possible. Yeah, there might be a few more constraints there. But if one can, as it were, show that a growth mindset is going to help us do better, to expand the value offering, to perhaps take on more people, I think one would hope, all things being equal, to get some union buy-in. But I suppose, if there's particular skills and capabilities that might be superseded by new events and new things, I could see that being a challenge too. So yes, I think I see where that question's coming from.
Got it. Well, thank you. Matthew, we have just a few minutes left in our session. So we'd like to ask you if you could leave our audience with one last quick tip or piece of advice for them before we wrap up our session today.
Well, Coulson, thank you again for inviting me. I think you've hosted this brilliantly. Claire was superb too. Helen, thanks for coming in. Thanks for the care you took with this. We prepared hard for it, didn't we? We had preparation calls, and I hope some of that has rubbed off on the actual session we've had. Thanks for the attendees who are still with us. It's the majority who were there at the beginning, which is always a good sign. Appreciate that very much. Helen said, I do the Mindset Advantage every 6 months. As a sports person, I used to practice hard as a ping pong player, and I would measure how well my forehand was going on and how my win percentage. I don't think we do enough measurement and reflection on our mindset. And so I'd really encourage you. It's something I do. I benefit from it every time. There are always insights, because often our attitudes are quite unconscious. And so surfacing them gives us a chance to work on our mental game. And so I would just encourage you as leaders, yes, it's about learning technical skills, but also give yourself a bit of time to think about the mental side of performance and mindset advantage.
Great. Well, thank you, Matthew. Thank you for joining us today. It was a pleasure. We loved all of your insights, and we really do hope that everyone here does try out the Mindset Advantage report. And thank you to Helen and Claire as well. Everyone, it is available on Blue Steps, and we also have a link to Matthew's book in the chat too, if you're looking for that as well. Well, thank you, everybody, and back over to Lisa.
And if you have any unanswered questions or would like to discuss whether Blue Steps is right for you, feel free to email us at info@bluesteps.com, as you can see on your screen. Well, that does conclude today's session. Thank you everyone for listening. You may now disconnect.